In addition to timing considerations, statutory in nature, we also are experiencing some of the lowest interest rates we've seen in quite some time. And some of it's due to market forces, the subprime lending problems have, and the somewhat gloomy economic outlook has driven the Fed to reduce interest rates, and the market is further compounding that, and that all adds up to a favorable time to issue bonds. So this will help the community college raise funds at very attractive interest rates. Under page 10 of the finance plan, page 11 actually talks about how the $5 million, the bond issue is $5 million. The $3 million would go to the trade center, and $2 million would go to building infrastructure renovations and remodeling to various facilities over the campus. I'd like to also say that in addition to the bond money, it's anticipated that this would be phase 1 of the trade center. Phase 2 would then be accomplished with $4 million state appropriation that really is dependent upon the local taxpayers putting forth an effort. The state higher ed department has become increasingly aware of the need for local matches. One of the sister institutions in the New Mexico state system, Carlsbad Community College, is in the process of conducting a general obligation bond election in their district that will actually take place the last Tuesday in January. They're slightly ahead of Alamogordo on the time frame, but it's basically to provide local funding to match state anticipated state appropriations. So
I do have a question. I know I'll forget to ask it if I don't ask it now. On that slide, number 11, it says phase 2 to include carpentry, electrical, HVAC, and plumbing will be funded with the state appropriations $4 million. The $4 million that we asked for direct capital, okay. I hate to put this, but with that being such a fine, they dropped from $800 million down to $340 million as far as being able to give us money. What would be the repercussions if, in fact, they don't come through with the $4 million from the capital outlay?
Well, realistically, if we don't get it this year, we'll go after it again next year as well.
Okay.
And of course, one of the things, if we have also the commitment from the community for the $3 million,
okay,
we anticipate that would give us even a better push to get that $4 million.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a good question. The last 2 pages of the handout is a detail of the bonds. We've been using a planning rate of 4.5% of the bond issue. That's certainly well above what we would experience in the market today. We'd be under 4% today if we went into the market today. We're using a very conservative estimate on interest cost. The anticipated mill rate would be at 4.5% would be 0.9 mils. If you take that a step further, on the last page of the handout, in the bottom middle, there's an impact table. The impact on a home with $100,000 market value would be about $16 a year, or $1.32 a month. And I want to also reiterate that would be an increase over what the tax is this year, but in fact would be roughly the same tax as somebody would have paid last year. So we have to say, in all fairness, that it is a tax increase over the current tax rate, but in actuality, it's really just returning to the level that people have been paying for about 10 years now for the community college. So it's a little bit of a story we have to tell on this one, but nonetheless, I think it's a good story. And with that, I would stand for any questions that you might have on the finance plan. I think it's pretty straightforward and sound, and just would be open to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? I think one thing that I need to ask, and I'm thinking that you answered it. This whole timeline was kind of recreated, but we've always tried to stay with that April 1st election day. But because of certain things not falling into place, we're on target right now. If in fact we go through with this resolution and everything else falls into place, there's not going to be any changes in that election date. It's firmed up on April 1. Okay. I guess the next item we need to talk about is what, and I think you kind of covered it, if you want to go over the actual specifics of the bond itself. And I think, Tony, did you want to go into any more detail than what you already have? Because you have.
Just going back to your question, we have already been appropriated from the state $175,000 for planning and design, and the city was given another $100,000 for a one-stop center, which was like a two-building project to be built on the campus. And so, I don't think the state would, just give us that money and not go through with funding the other $4 million. I think they just want to see the community do its part for them to provide their match.
Right. Because we have that separated. Does it? I heard somebody agree. Okay. We have it separated as talking about the bond and also the presentation. So is there anything else that you need to say before we go on to the next part? Dave, you have a question?
Well, I was just curious. I recall that, maybe it's just my perception, but there was a setback in regards to the college's ability to secure the additional funding. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? And there's something reported in the paper. Can you remind me about what that was about?
Sure. What it was is that, well, the one thing is, of course, we do have the architect already hired with the planning money, and in fact, we met with him this week, was it? Yes, to start that process. The other thing that happened is that when we went before the higher ed department, basically they took a look at the $4 million allocation that we were asking for, and obviously their response was, well, is that enough to really do a trade center? And we said, no, it really is not. When you take a look at all these programs, we will need additional monies. However, the other thing that they were very much interested in, well, what is the amount of community support for this type of center? And so realistically, what we were looking at, well, which do we do first, the chicken or the egg? We're not really sure here. But we definitely are going forward with this. So at that point in time, the higher ed department did not put that on their list of recommended projects for this legislature. They didn't for Carlsbad either. And that's why Carlsbad is going forward with their general obligation bond as well. Are we still pushing forward with it? Yes, we are. We're working through our legislators to get this year. Yes, we are. However, what we are very much looking at is that if, for example, we come forward with a general obligation bond of $3 million and we don't get it the $4 million this year, we believe that we have a really good chance next year, as we